welcome to episode 3, week 2 of the Houghton's Heroes Fantasy Football League videocast. I'm your host, Dan, and on today's show we have a recap of week 1, the preview of week 2 after Thursday night's games. More stats are coming out for you. We also have the exclusive interview with number 1 sitting Simon Johnson, the owner of Lamborghini Percy. He will join us on the phone in just a little bit, but first off, I think we need to address some Facebook comments made by our own league member, Kyle Krim. Now, last week, after week 1's video was posted, Kyle took exception to something that was in the video. Now, before we address what he said, everyone knows that everything that I say in this video, or everything that is brought up in the Facebook group or the league page, is totally serious. No one has ever been sarcastic. No one put an ounce of sarcasm in any of their predictions or comments or insults or anything. But now, going into Kyle's comments, knowing that everything is not to be taken lightly, everything is what everyone means, Kyle did not like the fact that I thought that he cared which division he was in. Now, this led to some backlash, him wondering why he even watched these videos. And so now, Kyle, because your viewership is so important to me, I am no longer going to speculate on how you feel about things, and I am never going to be sarcastic about you again. And I'm just going to be nice to you in these videos from now on, because we don't want to make any assumptions about how you feel. So we just want to be nice, and hopefully you enjoy these videos from now on. And with that, let's start recapping week 1. And the first matchup we had in week 1 was Kavi against Benda. Now, before this matchup, we commented on how interesting it was that Kavi was playing against a team that he himself was co-managing with Benda. We understand that. That's cool. Anything that we can help out a league member, that's great. Kavi ended up taking this matchup 100-82. It really wasn't much of a matchup because of the way the scores broke down. Benda only had 3 scores that were really worthwhile. He had Drew Brees with 15 points, Jeremy Maclin with 15 points, and Julius Thomas with that crazy 3-touchdown game amassed 28 points. Now, outside of this, he didn't have anyone else in double digits and actually had 4 players with 3 or less points. This doesn't bode well for your fantasy matchup, and you ended up losing. Andrew Luck got Kavi 25 points, Le'Veon Bell got him 24, and Ryan Matthews and Greg Olsen got him 12 and 14, respectively. Now, this was a good showing with Kavi. He broke the 100 mark. Anytime you want to get above 85 to 90 points, you think you're in line for a win. This was a good way to start out the season with Kavi. He is now on a 3-game winning streak dating back to last year. The second matchup we had was Steve against Carl in the same division. Now, this one was not close at all. Carl ended up running away with this 104-43. To start out with Steve's team, he got -2 points from his defense. Now, the Rams were a good defense last year, and no one could have predicted this. It's not really his fault, but -2, anytime you get anything negative, it's definitely a bad sign. His only player in double digits was LaShawn McCoy with 11. Aaron Rodgers only got him 9 against Seattle. You expect a lot better than this, although it is the Seattle defense, and you are in the Seattle. That's not a good matchup. And everyone else got him nothing. Victor Cruz got him 2 points in the Monday Night Football game against the Lions, and Jermaine Gresham, his tight end, got him 1 against Baltimore. Like I said, Carl ran away with this one. Everyone in his team was in double digits outside of T.Y. Hilton with 4 points, and Phil Dawson, his kicker, for San Francisco with 3. Looking pretty strong heading into week 2. Carl is 1-0. Steve cannot say the same. Another week 1 matchup we had was Andrew Blake against Holly Carroll. And this was a very anticipated matchup, not only because Drew was looking for his first win in the first 4 games in his career, but also because the amount of smack talk between these two leading up to the draft and the beginning of the season was epic. The throw back and forth of insults and predictions was off the charts. We all loved it. And in the end, Andrew Blake was victorious. His first win in the first 4 weeks of the season. He's riding high right now with a 111-103 victory. Holly is the tough luck loser this week. Anytime you score 100 points, let alone if you even score 90, you expect to win, but it wasn't to be this week. It looks as if Drew finally has the fantasy gods on his side. He had a huge game from Marshawn Lynch, 24 points on Thursday night. Others in double digits were his quarterback, Phillip Rivers with 12, A.J. Green, his loved boy, with 19, Cordero Patterson maybe taking the spot in number one in Drew's heart with 18 points, the Seattle defense with 10, and Blair Walsh, Minnesota kicker, with 13. No one else really did much for Drew, but that got him to 111 and got him the win. Holly had 14 from Nick Foles, also from Chris Johnson, 11 from Brandon Marshall, and she tried to ride her 49ers to the victory. Vernon Davis was 16 and their defense was 17, but again, it wasn't to be. Drew starts 1-0 for the first time in his career. Holly loses. Let's see if Drew can continue it in week 2. In another highly anticipated matchup in week 1 was Kyle against myself. We have developed quite the rivalry over the past 2 years, and this one was no short of drama. Either taking the early lead from Thursday night was Kyle, but he ended up being vanquished in the end. I ended up prevailing 120 to 76. Like I said, 17 points from Russell Wilson on Thursday night, but the only people that really got him anything more was Giovanni Bernard with 10, Antonio Brown with 17, and Zach Ertz, the Philadelphia tight end, with 13. Outside of that, everyone got him 5 or less, which left him with 76. On the opposite hand, Matt Ryan shined for me with 30 points, the top scorer of the week. I got strong games from Matt Forte, Monte Ball, Joik Bell, the Eagles defense, which was a plug for me, and Steven Hauschka with 10, all in double digits. Everyone else got me either 9 or 8. It was a strong showing for me in week 1. Kyle looks to bounce back in week 2. And in the final matchup of week 1, we had Sacco Jake up against Lamborghini Percy of Simon, and this one was one for the ages. Simon destroyed Jake 124 to 53. Now, Jake's team didn't have anyone in double digits, and I think you can point to his running back core for this one. His running back core is beyond weak, and no one else really performed for him the rest of the week. 53, second lowest point total of the week, but on the other hand, Simon blew him out of the water. 29 points from Matthew Stafford, 28 from Kelvin Johnson, quite the duo it ended up being on Monday Night Football. He got 12 from C.J. Spiller and 19 from his hometown Vikings defense. Not really much otherwise, but those 4 big scores got him to 124 points, the best of week 1. And speaking of Simon, he's our interview of the week. And joining me now on the Sacco Moisturizing Hotline is the top team after week 1, the manager of Lamborghini Percy, Simon Johnson. Simon, how are you doing this afternoon?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you very much. Coming to you guys from some random classroom I found on the campus of University of Wisconsin-Madison. It's empty, and I hope no one comes in.
We certainly hope that as well. But Simon, you won your first game. You were 1-0 here on the season. You are the top team, scoring 124 points in week 1. How does it feel to be on top?
It's always good feeling to get the W, especially when the W is a particularly strong performance by the team. I'm feeling like it's a good start to the season. So yeah, good butterflies, but not looking to let my guard down.
No, definitely you want to keep that momentum rolling. Knowing that you were the top scorer with 124 points in the league, are you going to change your lineup much for week 2, or do you plan on keeping it just about the same and seeing how long the gravy train can roll?
Yeah, I think the 2 major considerations I made were, do I want to put in Dalton instead of Stafford, since the Lions are facing a quite stout defense in Carolina, but I decided screw it. I'm liking what I'm seeing from the Lions. I'm leaving Stafford in. And then also, I had thought I just really didn't like what I saw from Romo and the boys last week, and so I just didn't trust Witten to put up numbers this week. He obviously didn't last week, and so I thought, Rudolph, why not? He saw a look in the red zone last week and got a touchdown. Why not I'll throw him in. But I actually did end up sticking with Witten with all the drama that's going on in Minnesota. Um, I just thought I have no idea how that might affect the offense, so I just I put Witten back in.
Yeah, we see that your lineup is pretty much unchanged from week one. You mentioned
Yep.
that you were relying on the Lions a lot. Are they your favorite team right now?
Favorite in terms of getting me points, yes.
Yeah.
um,
And mentioning
yeah.
those points, Megatron and Stafford both got you over 20 points, over 25 points in your week one win. Did you plan on drafting them together, or is that just the way the cookie crumbled?
That's just I definitely did think that I would and planned on getting Megatron in the first, but I had no idea what my plan was for quarterback. I just kind of waited for a while to see who was around, and it just happened to be Stafford. And I was like, I'll pull a copy, I'll snag them both, see how it works out. And I mean, obviously, week one was spectacular. I think anyone would be a fool to expect their numbers to continue to be that high, but I think it is an indication that they will both hopefully be performing it, at a high level at least.
It definitely
throughout the rest of the season.
It definitely looks like they're primed for huge seasons. Each Megatron is always the top of his class, and it looks like Stafford after week one has a lot of his game is improving. Your next week matchup is against Kyle, who started his season off with a loss. He lost to me. He scored 74 points. What is your thought on this matchup? Are you confident going into it?
I am confident that it'll be a close match. I really don't know what to expect from so one of my riskier moves is I'm keeping the Vikings D end with Patriots, and that's gonna kind of I think be big risk. It's gonna be a boom or bust with that one. So I don't think all the players I have in, I know what to expect from them. Um, I think Kyle's lineup is totally solid. So I think it's just going to come down to mostly who gets lucky this week.
I see. It could definitely go either way. I'm on the record, or I will be on the record, saying that I believe that you will win this week, despite Kyle having the 10-0 lead at the moment. We all know your favorite team is the Minnesota Vikings. This is a fantasy video, but being a Vikings fan, we can turn it to a serious note. Yesterday, everyone learned that AP, Adrian Peterson, was not going to play this upcoming week because of child abuse allegations. How do you see this playing out on the team? You already said you benched Rudolph because you don't know how it is going to affect the offense. As a Minnesota Vikings fan, how does this news strike you?
Yeah, it's tough to balance these things. Of course, when you hear about this kind of news, unfortunately, like my first reaction is like, oh no, what's going to happen to the next game or several, whatever ends up happening, what's going to happen to Adrian Peterson. And of course, you have to remind yourself that the significance of what happened is outside of the game more than inside the game. So, you have to keep in mind, I think mostly I'm just very confused as to what actually, what Adrian Peterson's relationship with this kid is. He has several children outside of wedlock, and I don't know. I mean, I don't think anyone questions his intent being good. I think he always has the intention to be a good player, a good father, a good person. And, he, in his interview, he said, he disciplines his children the same way he was when he was a kid. And he said that's, he thought it was what made him into the person he is today. And I think a lot of people think he's a very respectable person. But then, pictures came out this morning of the 4-year-old kid's legs, and it's up to the individual to decide whether, like, the wounds inflicted with the switch with this branch were, like, something that no kid should go through, or whether that's just par for the course for how kids should be raised by their parents. So I don't know. There's just like a million issues, but I think it's unfortunate for the Vikings organization. It's unfortunate for the fans. It's unfortunate for Adrian Peterson's family.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough situation. But like you said, it is a matter outside of football. We all care about fantasy here, but on the outside, we are talking about people's lives and everything. It was great to have you on, Simon. We want to put this to a positive note. We want to end the interview on a good note. But before we do leave, have you learned who Kyrie Robinson is yet? I know during the draft you had a lot of questions about who this player is. But have you learned who Kyrie Robinson is yet?
Yo, that man's still a mystery, dude. I have no idea if this person is even real.
All right. Well, hopefully in week 2 you can get some answers. Maybe we can have you back and we can talk a little bit about Mr. Robinson and what he means to you. But thanks, Simon. Good luck in week 2. It was great to have you on.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Best of luck to you as well, and everyone else in the league. I'll kick all y'all's asses soon enough.
And with that, let's now dive into our Week 2 predictions for the Houghton's Heroes Fantasy Football League. And starting off Week 2, we have a huge matchup between Kavi and Drew. Both teams starting 1-0. Kavi, however, is 3-0 in his career in Week 2, and also 1-3 lifetime versus Drew. However, Drew is coming off this huge emotional win, his first win in his first 4 weeks of his career, and he scored over 100 points in his last 3 regular season games. It looks really close right now. However, for Kavi, Lacey and Matthews both have tough games. They're both going up against good defenses, in my opinion, and I think Alshon Jeffrey is more hurt with that hamstring than what we think. Kavi's currently winning this 9-0. 9 points from Le'Veon Bell. I think he expected a little bit more, but that was good based off of what the offense was doing for Pittsburgh. However, for Drew, Palmer has a decent game this week, I think, against the weak New York Giants defense. We can just see what they did against the Lions, and they did basically nothing. Marino and Green have big games this week. Moreno had a big game last week for Miami, and I think he does it again. And AJ Green is a stud. You gotta start your studs. He has a big game as well against Atlanta. Mark Ingram and Cordero Patterson, however, I think get shut down in these 2 matchups, but I don't think it matters. I think Drew is going to take the win and go to a surprisingly 2-0 on the season. Another Week 2 matchup we have is the best team in the league after Week 1, Simon, against 0-1 Kyle. Now, with his win in Week 1, Simon has the 2nd largest margin of victory in league history. It almost eclipsed Kavi's huge record that he has, but it doesn't quite make it. Simon and Kavi are also tied for the longest winning streak in the league at 3. Kyle, however, is 3-0 in his career in Week 2 and 5-1 in his career against Simon. He's currently up 10-0. Kyle is in this matchup from Antonio Brown on Thursday, but Kansas City has a really messed up offense right now. Jamal Charles only got a handful, I think it was 11 touches in Week 1. Really abysmal. They don't even know what they're doing down in KC if they can't give their best player the ball. I think Fred Jackson is not going to do as well as he did in Week 1. He had a really long gain in OT that got him a lot of his points. I don't think he breaks one this week. But I do think Giovanni Bernard has a good week against the Falcons. On the other hand, Alfred Morris, Jordy Nelson, and Mega have huge games this week for Simon. And I think CJ Spiller does better than Fred Jackson, and that is what is going to get Simon the win. Simon's going to go to 2-0, Kyle 0-2 to start off the league year. And early off in the Sacco battle, we have Steve against Jake, both 0-1 and both the bottom 2 point scorers of the league. Steve has the slight edge in the Sacco competition over Jake. However, Jake is 0-3 against Steve in his career, and Steve is 11-11, 500 team after a loss in his career. Jake has only scored over 89 points only one time in his last 13 regular season games, and 8 out of 10 times after a loss, Jake has started a losing streak of at least 2. He is currently on a 7-game losing streak, 2 away from tying the longest losing streak record in the league. Currently, though, Jake is up 6-0 because he played a Baltimore running back on Thursday night. I already said I think his running back core is super weak, and I think that this costs him, as it will the entire season. Jake is trying to win off projected points, it looks like, just by plugging in the players that have the most projected on ESPN rankings. And I think that Demaryius Thomas has a big game for him, but I think that's about it. Like I said, I think he has a weak team, plugging in players here and there. Jimmy Graham is a stud at tight end, but the Saints are finding a lot of weapons to put on their offense where they don't need to rely on Jimmy Graham as much, and I think his plan this year is going to backfire. Steve has also way too much talent on his team to lose this matchup, which I think is a virtual lock for him to win. I think Steve obviously gets the win, and he goes to 1-1. Jake continues the assault on the Sacco Trophy once more. Also in week 2, we have myself against Andrew Benda and Kavi Blake. I am 16-4 in my career after a win, and I boast the highest scoring average in the league at 99.3 points per week. Kavi, however, is 1-0 this season when he is the ESPN projected favorite. And Benda's teams are 3-2 in their last 5 regular season games. It's a 600 mark. Benda's currently up 14-3. His kicker got him an amazing 14 points, and Dennis Pitta only scored me 3 because the backup tight end got 2 touchdowns for Baltimore. Sucks for me, but I think Matty Ice continues to be on a hot streak. When they go up to Cincinnati, I think Monte Ball has a big breakout game against KC. Julio Jones will score a touchdown along with Sean Green against the Cowboys. As for Benda, I think Carlos Hyde is quiet. I think they give the ball more to Frank Gore this game. I think his tight end Thomas settles down. There's no way he's going to have 3 touchdowns again. Maybe 1. Wouldn't count more than that. And I think Jeremy Maclin is in single digits this week. He caught a lucky bomb last week that got him into double. I don't think it happens again. However, I do like his play against the Cardinals defense. Going up against the New York Giants offense, they're pretty weak. I think the Cardinals are a bright spot for Benda. However, I think he loses the lead after the Thursday night games, and I come out with the win to go 2-0. And finally, to round up week 2, we have 0-1 Holly against 1-0 Carl. Currently, the matchup is 0-0. No one had anyone playing on Thursday Night Football, and their matchup career is 3-3, split down the middle between them two. Carl fought his way back up to 500, his career record, last week with the win, and only time Carl has made the playoffs, he started the season with a win. This bodes well for Carl, but Holly is 2-1 in her career in week 2, and however, she's only scored over 100 points in 2 of the last 9 regular season games, including last week, which she lost. Foles and Stacy, I think, are going to cost Holly dearly. She's riding all on her Eagle quarterback there, and I don't think they're going to have a good game this week. And Zach Stacy and the Rams are just a terrible team right now. I don't think they have anything figured out. Not going to get much from her, and I think Vernon Davis comes down to earth. No way he's going to get double digits this week, along with CJ K. No one knows what he's going to do. He likes the Jets offense, it looks like, but I think we need to hamper the expectations against Green Bay. On the other side for Carl, I think Vereen, Randall Cobb, and Roddy White carry him to the win and a 2-0. And those were my predictions for week 2. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Have a good week 2, and we'll see you back next week to recap all of my predictions and to preview week 3.